Hello and welcome to my first YouTube video. Today I'm going to be going over the bring up process for your controllers using KVM. This is going to be for Cisco SDWAN, and I'll be demonstrating how to spin up a vBond, a vManage, and a vSmart using KVM. Okay, so some documentation that I'll be following for this that I recommend you guys take a look at as well, and I will have linked in the description below, is going to be the Cisco SD-WAN Getting Started Guide. It's a great guide. It has all of the information needed for your bring up process. But what's going to be important here for your bring up is the information located here, which is going to be talking about how much space you need to allocate for these devices, how much RAM, volume, depending on the size of your network. And then it'll have each device shown and their recommended storage. But I'm not going to be following these to a T because this is just going to be a lab setup. So for this video, the main focus is just going to be bringing these devices up, and then in another video I will be going over forming control with these devices and getting your controllers and getting your overlay spun up. But for now we're just going to go over the installation process using KVM. Okay, let's backtrack here. So you click on plus from the KVM or the virtual machine manager, which you should have installed already. There are plenty of guides out there on how to install this software on your Linux kernel. Personally, I am using Manjaro, which runs on Arch, but I have done this on Debian before, and it works the same way. So once you hit plus, then you go to import existing disk image, browse, select your software. I'm going to start with a vBond, and keep in mind that your vEdge Cloud software and vBond share the same image. They're just configured differently, and we'll get more into that configuration later on. But for now, we're just getting into how to spin this up. So we need to have the vEdge Cloud software here, and vSmart and vManage will also be here. Actually, something I almost forgot to go over, you're going to need to add this path, which you'll add here by clicking on this plus sign and then naming this, which for this I named 18402, but you can name it wherever you want, and then you'll do browse and find your location. Personally, I used a folder that I created in Etsy, and then select VMs, and then in here. Actually storing these controllers in the actual file system has been a better option for me than storing them on an actual user profile. You start to run into issues with authority and permission denied errors, which is a whole rabbit hole you really don't want to go into. So I suggest storing them in the Etsy or /var file directory, and that has worked out tremendously for me recently. Now you just pick that file path and hit finish, and that directory will now show on the side here. And then you'll select that directory and select your image. So for the vBond, we will be using a vEdge Cloud as discussed earlier. Choose that volume. Use Ubuntu, or I'll be using generic default, not Ubuntu, but according to documentation, you can use Red Hat Enterprise Linux or Ubuntu 14.04 or 16.04. This just depends on kind of your preference. I'm not sure if there's any actual benefit to using Red Hat Linux over Ubuntu. I would not be one to speak on that. Or vice versa, Ubuntu over. I don't know what the benefits between the two are for the SD-WAN operating system. So I have just been using generic default, and that has worked tremendously for me. I haven't had any issues with it, so that's what I will be using. Following documentation, I'm just going to give it 2048 memory and 2 vCPUs. Actually, not following documentation. This documentation says I need 4 gigs, but I'm not giving it 4. I don't have that much space, so I'm going to be calling this vbond 18.4.02. It's important that you tick the customize configuration before install check and then click finish. Then you click add hardware. You're going to add a NAT interface and then give it a device model. So from your options here, this is where you would choose to either bridge or use a virtual interface that gets NATed in and out. Personally, since I'm using a wireless NIC and I have 3 devices here, I don't want to bridge all of those to one interface, so I'm just going to use a virtual network that gets NATed in and out. And I've actually been able to configure it so that I can have other devices on my LAN ping into this virtual network, and this network can ping out to other devices in my LAN as well. It just takes some tinkering with and some KVM settings to get working, but that is possible. But this is where you would choose between the two of bridging or using a virtual network. But I'm going to be using a virtual network. I'm going to add my hardware. You need to create a new custom storage, which I will be creating a new, I guess I already have a, oh, that's in the wrong path. There we go. I'm not going to use this vbond. I'm actually going to delete this just so I can go over the, oh, this already deleted. Yep, okay. So I'm going to create a new storage volume, keep the format as QCOW, and drop the gigabytes to 10. Keep in mind, you guys are going to need to do different capacities depending on your network, and you're going to need to tinker with it a little bit on what you guys choose for your storage and how much resources to allocate to these devices. But I'm just going to give it 10 because that's all I need for this lab. Okay, I'm going to choose that volume and then finish that and begin installation at the top left. And we will now begin installing. Okay, and now the vbond is up. Something to keep in mind is as soon as the vbond is brought up, it's going to give you this message, system initializing, please wait to log in. This is pretty standard. This is a common thing. This happens to everybody when they're logging in, so you just need to kind of wait on it to initialize, and then you can log in. Now you'll notice that I actually have a host name on this box, so it looks like some of my configurations that I'd previously done are still on this vbond, but that isn't important for this video. We're just going to show you bring up process. Okay, so now once we have our vbond up and running, since I'm not forming control in this video, I'm just going to go ahead and shut it down to save some resources and go ahead and start on the vSmart. I'm going to import existing disk image, pick my vSmart. It's just going to be the same thing pretty much. Do generic default. Forwards, I'm going to give it 3000 and 2 vCPUs. Following Cisco documentation though, it is recommended that you give it 4 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes depending on your devices. You might need to use 8 vCPUs, 4 or 2. But since I'm not really doing much, I'll just give it 2. And I'm going to name it vSmart 18.4.02. Make sure you tick that customize configuration before install. Okay, and then go into here, add hardware, add your NIC. Oh no! Oh, great. I didn't add my second hard drive, so I'm going to delete this. Not going to delete this. I'm just going to speed run this really quickly. I'll probably fast forward through this. Now we're back where we should be. I apologize for that. My brain's kind of in autopilot right now. I've actually recorded this video a few times. It has been deleted, so... But now we're back, and I can add the proper storage device here. Select the create custom. Yep, and then we just add this. I'm gonna call it vSmart. I'm gonna give it a capacity of 15 gigabytes. Finish that up. And then I'm going to choose this volume, select create custom storage, click finish. We have 2 hard drives and 2 NICs now, and now we click on begin installation, and this will start. Okay, while that's starting, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this vManage, just to go ahead and be forward thinking in here. Browse, that needs to take a second to initialize anyway, even though that's started up. 2.4, pick your vManage software, choose the volume, generic default, pretty much the same thing. Now, following the server requirements for the vManage, it's asking for a whopping 16 virtual CPUs and 32 gigabytes of RAM. Now, you guys might have this much allocation for your servers, but personally, since this is just running on my PC, I don't have that much storage, so I'm going to be limiting this. I'm going to be really pushing this vManage to its limits on the server requirements here. I'm probably only going to give it like 6 virtual CPUs and maybe 8 gigs of RAM, but for this little guide that I'm doing, that won't be an issue. And if you're just looking to get access to a vManage that you can run some API calls to, then this is a good guide for you, because this is all you need just to run some API calls to a vManage. Is you're just going to need a little bit of vPCUs. You're not going to need to give it all 16. Don't be discouraged if your computer can't run that, because mine definitely can't. But I'm going to give it 8,000 memory and about 6 CPUs. I'm going to name it vManage 18.4.02. Customize configuration before install. Click finish. Just like the other devices, it needs 2 network interface cards. I almost did it again, guys. That would have been terrible. That would have been very, very awkward. And another awkward silence while I while I speed up and go through it again. But luckily that didn't happen. Okay, so in here, what am I doing? I need to click, I need to create. I've been creating these in here? Oh, what am I doing? That's supposed to be in here. Whatever. It's unorganized. It's a little unorganized now, but I'm just going to call it vManage and save it in the right directory. I'm going to give it 40 gigabytes of storage. Keep it as a QCOW2 format. And then save this. Okay, while that's working its magic, I'm going to go ahead and log into this vSmart just to show you the CLI is working. And we are in. Okay, so now this device is up, and our vManage storage volume got completed, and now we have 2 storage devices and 2 NICs. Now we can begin the installation of the vManage. This will take a little bit longer to initialize because it is a larger software version. Okay, now we can go ahead and do admin. I'm not gonna force it. I'll let it sit for a little bit and fast forward till it's ready. Okay, we're good now. Select storage device to use. Select HDB. I went to format HDB. Okay, now this might take a little bit to get done. Okay, looks like we finished initializing now, and I can log in. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to request NMS application server status, and this is just going to let us know when we can request to log into the vManage GUI, and I'm also going to do a show interface pipe tab. This will let us know the IP address that we need to use to log into the vManage GUI. Okay. I'm going to need to use the IP address 192.168.122.196 and hit enter here. Now, as the vManage application server is just starting up, it's kind of expected that it'll take a little bit to get working here. It's fine. There we go. We go to advanced, we're going to hit accept risk and continue. Now, actually something that I ran into a little bit ago was when trying to get this running with this specified port of 8443, which is the port for HTTPS. It just doesn't load, so I'm able to actually get into the GUI if I get rid of that port extension at the end. It worked last time. Let's see, it might just be taking a little bit to get loaded, which is completely possible. I would not doubt it. Give it a good 90 seconds. Trying a bunch of different ports. I can see it knows what it's connecting to because I can see the Cisco logo up there, but it just doesn't want to work with me. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to let it sit for a little bit and see if I can access it after letting it initialize. Okay guys, after waiting a little bit, it actually just loaded right in without using any ports or changing anything like that. So just sometimes it takes a little bit of patience. Okay, and now you have access to a vManage GUI. Okay guys, so this concludes my first video on bringing up these devices on KVM. In my next video, I will be going over how to form control with these devices once they are brought up. So after this process, how to form control with them and get your controllers up and ready. I'll also be going over some of the things like the certificate signing process, specifically for enterprise root CAs, because I won't be signing these certificates with a Symantec or Cisco. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, found it useful or beneficial, just go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video on forming control. Okay, thanks for viewing, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. All right.